Thank you all for sticking around. We've all just watched Patrick's Day, and so I'm going to welcome up for a Q&A. It's writer and director, Terry McMahon. So Terry, first of all, welcome to the Little Cinema. Thank you for visiting us. Thank you for showing your film with us. Can you tell us a little bit about what inspired Patrick's Day? What inspired you to make Patrick's Day?
There was two things. One of them was, and it's funny because you end up talking about these things, and these are things you don't want to talk about, but you end up making a film that's supposed to be about being open, so you have to be open yourself. But I was homeless when I was a teenager, and I saw firsthand how easy it is to become so alienated from the world that you've no idea who you are, you've no idea what you're doing, you've no idea what it feels like to reach out and connect with somebody. And I ended up moving from different place to different place because you become terrified of being revealed as a lonely, lonely fucking broken man that you are. So you do everything in your power to conceal that. So I remember I used to go to bookstores and record stores, and they were the two places where you could hang around for hours on end and not be deemed to be suspicious. And again, DVD stores. We got Noel McGee here who ran a DVD store. Those kind of places became like cathedrals. They became a kind of church. And I remember feeling so incapable of reaching out to anybody that you lose the capacity for speech, you lose the capacity for engagement, you lose the capacity for anything. And your biggest fear is being exposed as such. So you move from bench to bench, or you move from wherever the hell you move to, because the only thing worse than being rejected is being identified as being so lonely that it's a shameful cancer almost. And then the second thing was, later on I ended up working in a psychiatric institution as a trainee carer, as they called it at the time. And in these institutions there's some magnificent people, really wonderful people who work there, but there are also some real fucking scum. And it seems to attract both kinds of people. And I used to see at the weekends when the guardians or the parents of, or minders, or whatever they were called, of these patients would come, and they would treat them with love and with caring and engagement and all those things, but as soon as any one of those patients, as they were called, would show an aspiration toward intimacy or sexuality, they were shut down with such fucking force. It was incredible. And their aspiration was treated as if it was an aberration of their mental illness, as opposed to a genuine, simple fucking human desire. And I remember thinking at the time, never even thinking I would ever have the right to even write a screenplay, but I remember thinking at the time that there must be some way of combining that cancerous loneliness with this moral certitude that because you're in somebody's responsible care, you have the right to fascistically control their future on every level. So the film hopefully is both a political metaphor and a human story. It's very strange having this conversation in front of a bunch of people, right? And sometimes I masturbate.
Don't we all?
Don't we all? Who said don't we all? And the mother, my God, what a bitch. How would you write that mother's character? My mother was a cunt, what can I tell you? No, the mother is, again, it's one of those things that, you know, you don't want to start repeating things, but the mother is driven by love. She's driven by the notion of protection. She's not malicious. She's not doing anything to hurt him because she feels the end result will be damaging him. She's doing what she does because she believes, and it's a delusion, of course, but she believes that what she's doing is right. And the thing we talk about is that we lie to our children every day. Anybody here with children, or anybody who has been a fucking child, which is all of us, understand that we lie to our children about the basic things like the tooth fairy or Santa Claus. Am I becoming repetitive? Or this thing we call God. And we do these things because we believe that the benefit to the child, the moral guidance for the child is beneficial on every level. If you conceive of the notion of having a child who is, in a reductionist sense, diagnosed as being mentally ill, is there nothing you won't do? Is there no lie you won't tell to try and protect them? So she's doing what she does to try and protect her, or to try and protect Patrick. I don't see the mother as a bitch, I don't see the mother as evil or any of those things. I see her as a conflicted woman who's existing within a system that allows her and facilitates her to reduce a human being to something less than human, which is something that we allow to happen every day from our government.
And you were the joint winner at last year's film with this film. How has the film been received by audiences?
Again, I opened the film by trying to allow you, give you permission to fucking hate it, but it's one of those strange films where it's won a whole bunch of awards and it's had profound engagement with audiences. We have literally hundreds of letters from people. We've had extraordinary experiences where people stand up in a theatre and this tiny voice comes from the darkness and starts talking about something incredibly private. We've had all that kind of reaction, and we've also had the reaction of the people who are involved in the marketing of films, which is, how the fuck do we sell this film? So, Seth and Noel were just talking about it earlier, but we're in a position where the film has had enormous success, where the film has had a 6-week run in Ireland, it had remarkable reactions, it had all those things. But in actuality, that success bears no relation to putting a meal on your table. So the film appears to be engaged on a level that's profound, but the reality is you're broker than someone who's on social welfare. That's a very optimistic view.
And is that one of the things which is maybe wrong with the film industry in Ireland or in general, that if you make a film which is a thought-provoking piece and which really resonates with people, it might not get you the money which will allow you to make the next piece, which could be just as thought-provoking?
It's funny because I know that some of you in here are filmmakers and some of you are aspiring to make your own films and all that kind of stuff, so we'll talk about it within this context. But when people talk about what's wrong with the Irish film industry, I can't comprehend that notion. We are existing in a country where there's a body set up to give money to filmmakers. Already we're in the rarest category. So many countries don't provide anything on any level. People make movies in America and they max out their credit card or they rob or steal or do whatever the fuck is required. So for me, the idea of anybody giving me €5 to make a film is a privilege. It's not something where I go, I have a birthright, I demand that you provide me with the right because I'm a fucking artist or any of that kind of nonsense. If somebody's willing to back this movie on any level, I'm blown away by it. The film board have been staggeringly generous to Patrick's Day. When they saw the finished cut, they thought they had gold on their hands. They were so excited about its commercial viability. And they're stunned by the fact that in commercial, despite all the awards and everything in the commercial realm, like we've never had a screening in England. We have Kerry Fox and Philip Jackson, I think two of the most wonderful actors in the world, but both who live in England. And those things, even those things are not enough. In the same festival, the film that we won that joint award with that you're talking about is Glassland. Now, a lot of people seem to have an reaction to Glassland. I think it's an extraordinary film. But you have Toni Collette and you have Jack Reynor. And it seems to be that there's enough of a frisson in that to make it 1 millimeter beyond the line that we can't cross. And yet they're fighting to sell that movie. And Patrick's Day, perversely, did much better in the box office in Ireland than Glassland did. So all these movies that are about something other than cartoon, popcorn, horseshit are having a really difficult time. This is getting more fucking optimistic. Anybody any jokes?
I'll just see, does anyone in the audience have any questions? I'll let anyone ask questions if you do have any. You got a question there, yeah?
Terry,
if you could just wait for the microphone there.
I just want to say, is it going to go on to DVD?
Yeah, I think it's released in the first or second week of June.
And from the point of view of the making of the film, as a director, there's a lot of scenes in it sorry, bit of a burp. There's a lot of scenes in it which are very tricky or testing on the actors. How do you approach that with getting that kind of a performance out of the actors?
Well, again, it's one of those stories that you tell, and it's not a pocket story. It's Mo Dunford who plays the lead role. He was 25 when he arrived, and he was unknown on every level, and I had seen a whole bunch of pretty boys and all that kind of stuff, and I thought, we're fucked. We're casting a bunch of guys who are auditioning for boy bands. I don't understand. There was nothing broken in them, there was nothing interesting in them. They had come from a life of privilege, they had been to the Billy Barry School of Acting, they had arrived in a position where they spent more time in the fucking gym than they spent in front of the mirror, which was all they did. And you're going, we're in trouble, we're literally in trouble. And Tim Palmer, the fantastic producer Tim Palmer, I said to him, look, and this is one of the benefits of something like Charlie Casanova, which we made for less than €1,000, despite the fact that it was damned beyond measure. But with a film like Charlie Casanova, if you say to somebody, I'm going to shoot this on my fucking phone, they actually stupidly think that the threat is real. So you get away with that. So I said, look, I will shoot this on my fucking phone before I cast one of these blonde-haired, blue-eyed fucking boy band cunts. So Mo Dunford came in, and I didn't know Mo, and he'll admitted himself. He came in and there was a smell of fucking booze off him, and he'd been partying all night, all those kind of things. And our brilliant casting director, Rebecca Roper, a lesser casting director would have sent him home, but she let him do his thing. And the one thing that I realised instantly is that he knew all the text, the basic thing of knowing your fucking text. And he did a very strange, very interesting, very compelling, very raw, very untutored, uncrafted, unskilled, but possibly very interesting audition. And then we had a whole bunch of callbacks and all that bullshit that you got to go through with a movie. And then they kept on trying to, there was this guy who was quite famous who wanted to play the role and who they wanted me to cast. And they kept on saying, just, he's the guy. And I met him 3 times, and a lovely man, a lovely young man, but again, nothing in him that was broken. And they asked me who I wanted. And it was a case of the film was close to falling apart. But because I said that I would make it on my fucking phone, they were scared too. So I asked for one callback, and it was Mo Dunford. And at the time, we didn't know that Mo Dunford had booked a holiday to Malta 6 months earlier. And what he didn't know is that he was the only callback. And in IADT, the college in Dublin, Rebecca Roper was working there. And that's where we had the callback. And instead of driving to the airport to go to Malta, he drove to the callback. And what the producer and the casting agent didn't know, and the financiers didn't know, is that myself and Mo had been communicating in private. And I told him what I needed him to do, and so on and so forth. And he came in and he did what I thought was a potentially remarkable audition. And everybody was still nervous, and the financiers were saying, why would you cast an unknown when you had this fucking star, and blah, blah, blah. So it was that situation where it was make or break. We were close to opening date in terms of production, and everybody was scared. And Mo was 25, and I brought him home. And this is a 25-year-old kid who's going, what the fuck am I doing? Is this guy going to try and rape me when I get home? What the fuck? We brought him home. I have this dog, this beautiful dog. It's a really, really gorgeous dog. And it was an Ireland game that night. There was a couple of friends of mine around. We got Mo drunk and put ham on the side of his face. And I got him to play out one of the scenes with the dog, where he's telling the dog how much he loves her. And the dog, of course, is licking the side of his face like a fucking paid hooker, and she's licking away. And I filmed it on my phone, and we sent it to the financiers. And after all the bullshit, all the back and forward, all everything, they suddenly went, he's perfect. So literally a fucking dog cast the lead actor. In terms of someone like Kerry Fox, I don't know whether you've seen the movie An Angel at My Table. Some of you have, I know. It's Jane Campion's early movie, a masterpiece, absolutely extraordinary. And I had seen it maybe 25 years ago, and I thought, those are the kind of actors that come once in a generation. And I asked Rebecca Roper, our casting agent, what is the chances of getting a Kerry Fox type? Because I knew there's no way we were going to get Kerry Fox. And Rebecca said, I can get a letter to her. So I wrote a letter straight from the fucking heart and the balls. And she read the script, and within 24 hours she said yes. And it was for a tiny sum of money, and I went to London and I spent the day with her, just so she could make sure I wasn't a complete fucking prick. And she agreed to it. Philip Jackson, the same thing. So I think we got a potentially remarkable cast for a tiny sum of money. The film was shot in 16 days for a budget that wouldn't even cover the mineral water in a standard fucking set. but we knew that something special was happening. So casting, you know, any of you who work with actors, we have this notion that actors are prima donna fucking assholes. They're not. They are the most generous society imaginable. They give everything, every day, put their soul on the fucking table in front of a camera, just so they're hoping that a moment can be captured for our entertainment in a dark room later. And that's what we had in the film.
What kind of equipment did you film on?
I don't fucking know. The Alexa, I had seen a film called Side by Side. It's a film that Keanu Reeves did.
Yeah.
You know the one. And it deals with the idea of the digital revolution versus the 35mm dinosaur, unfortunately. And at the end of it, Vilmos Sigmund, or whatever the fuck you pronounce his name, he was this contrary, fucking gorgeous asshole that was giving out about everything, and the whole thing was shit and everything. Until eventually he relented and he says the only camera that might compare on any level to 35mm is the Alexa. And I was sitting there going, I don't know what the fucking Alexa is, but if it's good enough for him, it's good enough for us. It's what we shot him.
Great. And one thing I was wondering about, from the point where you start writing the film, or you get the conception of the idea, to the point where you're sitting down to watch it in the theatre for its premiere, how long is that period of time?
Well, I've never sat down to watch the film with an audience. We were talking about this earlier, I wouldn't do that to an audience. Some poor fucker gets up to have a piss and I go, where the fuck are you going? So, you're talking about like 10 years.
10 years?
Essentially, yeah. Possibly more, because the idea was 20 years ago plus. So there's sometimes where, originally was a director in America. He flew me to New York to write a script for him, Robert Pale, wonderful director. And he flew me over and he said, look, I had shot some test footage of a script called The Dancehall Bitch for a thing called the Moonstone Filmmakers Lab. And he'd seen it and he had a remarkable response. And he said, look, I don't know what I want to do, but I want to work with you on some level. So he flew me over and we went out and got drunk for fucking 10 days and talked shit back and forward. And all the stuff that was on the table was all kind of regurgitated versions of Hollywood movies. Until he said something along the lines that he had a cousin or a relative who was diagnosed as schizophrenic. And I said to him, look, the thing that compels me more than anything is that division between illusion and reality. The thing that we are prepared to do every day to convince ourselves that our reality is more real than someone else's reality. Which is, you know, austerity, all this fucking bullshit politics that are put in motion now. Where somebody imposes their reality on yours. And from that I started to write, and the script was written, I think in like 10 days or something. And he loved it and all that kind of stuff, but he ended up working on another project. And I thought, okay, this is a script. And again, except for now we're talking about this, I'd written another script called The Dancehall Bitch simultaneously. So both of them were written literally within days of each other. And The Dancehall Bitch was deemed to be the worst script in the history of Irish cinema. And the fucking Patrick's Day is deemed to be this remarkable piece of writing, which is both are completely wrong, both are complete bullshit, but also the notion that they were both written by the same writer at the same time is very interesting. Because the time elapsement between when you write something and when something becomes a film. Most things that are written never become a film. Most things that are written never become a finished fucking paragraph on a page. Most of us, when we set out to do something, we have an idea that we never ever bring to fruition. So the idea of writing something that actually becomes a movie, for me, it's confounding beyond measure that it happened at all. And I genuinely believe that the likelihood of making a third movie is a fucking 1 billion to 1 shot. More optimism. Sorry to be sorry.
I saw on Facebook in the last few weeks that you had wrote what you thought was your best scripts to date, but it hasn't got funny. Is that the next film that you would hope to get made, or is it possible to get that made, or where does that stand?
Well, that's just some fucking whining writer on Facebook going, woe is me. No, it's back to the things, the kind of things that you want to make. I'd love to make films that, you know, these movies are not for everybody. It's not that I've made them, a whole bunch of people have made them, but I've been the writer and director of 2 films. Those 2 films landed culturally in the way that I hoped they would. You know, if we're not making something that's about a cultural consequence, then it's just masturbation and it's just popcorn and Coca-Cola. And I've written over 100 episodes of fucking soap opera, so I'm a complete hack whore. It's not that I've any shame about doing something for money, but when you're making cinema, you hope that it's about something that has a cultural impact that at least, and I keep on using this phrase, but it's the only one I can use, is that when your grandkids look back on you, they go, well, at least he wasn't a complete fucking coward. At least when the things that were happening in our culture, which are horrific on so many levels, you have a reaction, and instead of picking up a fucking baseball bat or a machete, you actually pick up a camera and you try and make a movie. Now the last film that I want to make, which is part of a trilogy, is about the consequence of a culture that protected sexual deviance across the board. And the consequence of that, the consequence of a culture of rape, the consequence of the men that are created by that culture, and what those men are prepared to do to convince themselves they are men, and what they are prepared to do to women to convince themselves they are men. That to me is profoundly compelling, because it's something that we're not exploring in our culture. But of course, you present that as an idea for a movie and the whole room goes, oh, for fuck's sake, can you not just make a fucking comedy, you stupid cunt? So it's hard to make a comedy about rape culture.
And with the little cinema, like we show short films each month, which are made by local filmmakers usually, and we try to encourage as much collaboration as possible, like people to work together and groups to get together, just get equipment, make stuff. And the story behind Charlie Casanova is a great story of how he just decided to make this film, Who's With Me? And so could you explain to the audience who might not know about it, your story behind that?
Why? Some of these poor bastards have seen the movie. The last thing they want to hear is another story about it.
Well, I think that the idea behind just going, I'm doing this, so who's with me? And then get the team together who makes this film, which like it won the best first feature at the Galway Film Club, which is a big deal. I know we spoke to it before, saying that a lot of people hated it, a lot of people just didn't get what it was about, didn't understand it.
No, it's not that they didn't get it. People are entirely entitled to their opinion. I think the difference is that something like Charlie Casanova, it's made as a punk rock film. It's made as a provocation. The phrase I can only use again and again is that it's a grenade with the pin taken out of it and it's fucked into a room. It needs to cause mayhem. It did cause mayhem, which was exactly what it was designed to do. And then you suddenly discover that small cliques of controlling class critics can suddenly destroy a film overnight. So Donald Clark wrote a series of deeply disingenuous articles. The Irish Times refused me to write a reply. Suddenly you're a moronic fucking asshole. Suddenly the film is depicted as a fallacy and the filmmakers are depicted as liars. And this is all happening in the week of its release. And you suddenly realize just how utterly powerless you are. That in actuality, despite everything that you put in motion, and despite international awards and all that kind of stuff, in your own home, the film about your own culture, which is about the decimation the controlling classes are putting in motion, was controlled by the controlling classes. And suddenly you realize just how fucking naive you are. Now subsequently the film, it's a revisionism and so on and so forth, and the banking tapes sound exactly like monologues from Charlie Casanova. These fucking self-important scum who don't give a fuck about anybody. But it's too late for you, because you lost the shirt off your back. And you're in a situation where you're so fucking impoverished you can't even consider the notion of making another film. And then I got a bunch of kids and I got a missus. And you say to them, I'm thinking of making another movie. And they go, you stupid cunt, get out. Get a fucking job. If anyone's offering a job, I'll tell you.
Do you ever feel like to make money out of it, you do need to kind of sell your soul a bit, or to start making the popcorn films?
Just for the record, I would sell my fucking soul in a heartbeat. Nobody wants to buy it. I'm not being facetious. I would bend over in a fucking half a second. I just might have a hairy arse that is not attractive. Whatever the fuck it is, nobody wants a piece of it. The film has had unprecedented success, and actually, it's funny because, again, we talked about it, but in Galway there was 6 major films that were up for the Galway Fly this year. And for me, the Galway Fly is one of the great festivals in the world, bar none. Of those 6 films, the other 5 directors are all working on other projects, other television projects, other movies, all funded. The only person who's not working on the project is Patrick's Day. Same scenario across the board with Irish television, with Irish cinema across the board. So it's not, I'm not whining here, I'm just presenting the reality of what it's like to be in a situation where you are literally fighting to put food on your table. In terms of what it takes to make a movie, it takes, like you say, you are promoting collaboration. There's nothing more collaborative than cinema. There's nothing more collaborative. Even this tonight, this remarkable building here, all these people in the room, this is pure collaboration. What it takes to get off your couch, what it takes to engage in a conversation, what it takes on every level to engage in a kind of alchemy where the normality, the banality, the pain is turned into something that might be aspirational, might be something beautiful. Is the nature of cinema, is the nature of engagement, is the nature of everything. But if you can't afford to put food on your table, you have to eventually qualify why you're sitting down in front of a blank page to engage in a world of fantasy when your own world of reality is falling asunder. Yesterday, I was in with a lawyer, and the banks were, I won't even go into the narrative because it's not worth it, but it's the same heartbreaking story that people are going through again and again. And the lies that have been told and the bullshit that has been put in motion might destroy my family. And then the family turn and look at you and go, you're going to look at a blank page and create some fucking fantasy movie? This is getting more optimistic by the moment, isn't it? Jesus Christ, I mean, what the fuck? Ask some happy questions, will you?
Oh, we got a question here, yeah? Lee?
No, it's not a question actually. I would just like to say thank you from the very bottom of my heart for making a film about somebody with a mental health issue that resonates a reality from a mother who has an adult with a mental health issue who lives in a care organisation. And it's the second time I've seen the film. The first time I saw the film, I was a bit, and somebody who actually works and teaches in film, and I was like, well, there's a few cliches, I'm not too sure about this, but on reflection, days after, and from seeing it again, all I can say is thank you for making an honest film about somebody with a mental health issue that gives me hope. And it brings out, and it's very interesting actually, the day before the referendum and the result tomorrow on equality, because that's what that film is about for me tonight. It's about equality. And the one thing that really comes through with me is our abhorrence about somebody with a mental health issue having the right to have a sexual relationship with somebody. And what is wrong with us that makes us so disgusted about having a sexual relationship with somebody from a mental health perspective? What is wrong with us? That's what that film does for me. And if it questions that amongst audiences, I bow and I say thank you for making that film.
Very good. You know what's bizarre? The vanity of the filmmaker was going, what fucking cliches are you talking about?
Well, there's another.
Get the fuck out.
Thank you very much. Do you reckon, what time is it now? It's after 11 o'clock. Are we in a country where you can have a gay marriage? Or are we not in a country where we can?
Yes!
It must be, we have to be. What do you think?
Let him fucking propose in peace, don't be interrupting him. I want to test you sexually first. If we're not, it's a terrible indictment of the culture we live in. What's interesting about this to me on every level is that the idea that the democratic process has actually become exciting again. The idea that the democratic process might have consequence again. The idea of bestowing the right on two lovers to define their marriage in relation to law is fucking ridiculous anyway. What was it I read earlier? The definition of marriage is that I love you, so let's get the law involved to make sure you don't fucking leave me. Brilliant summation of marriage. But if hopefully, and again it's what you said there about the idea of granting entitlement to intimacy on any level is insane in its own right. I do think on one level the whole thing is a smokescreen for Enda Kenny and Joan Burton to fuck us in a different way, but the idea that a bunch of people came together and decided, I'm going to fly back to Ireland, I'm going to get off my couch, I'm going to go to the voting fucking office and go, you know what, fuck all of you, these people have the right to engage. And also, the fact that the LGBT movement is the greatest revolution of our generation. What a fucking campaign The idea of owning the rainbow, for Christ's sake. How smart is that? And the idea of going, you know what? The idea of some man with some other man's penis in his mouth, which is so horrifying to all of us, is no longer on the fucking table. The idea of some woman going down on another woman is no longer on the table. The idea that somebody having children with somebody else who's not the same fucking notion of our idea of gender equality is no longer on the table. They've skipped all that fucking bullshit and gone straight to the idea of the law. It's a genius campaign, and with any fucking luck, the best of us will come out, and these cunts who said no can go fuck off.
Do we have any questions from the audience? Oh yeah, we got Margarita.
It just rather struck me because I was told that when this film was on, of course, I was in jail. And the similarity with jail and the mental hospital was very, that whole scene when one is queuing up for the drugs. And there is a lot of similarity because, in a way, I feel is that the whole country is under an illusion. And so that the mother who wants to make us forget that this is very much what Enda Kenny is doing. I mean, you know, if we take the reason why I was put into jail, it's because we have Shannon, and on the one hand, we're supposed to be a neutral country, and we're meant to be all happy-clappy, and then on the other hand, the most atrocious torture goes through. And it's debated in the door, and they say, is that no, we're neutral. And all of us, collectively, I have to say, ignore this. And so I felt very much is that the film was a symbol, on one level, of what's happening in Ireland, that we have become insensitive to the actual reality. So I'd like to thank you very much, Patrick, for the film.
Thank you. I completely agree with you about the idea of revisionism. We have the centenary of 1916 coming up next year, and we've got Fine Gael owning the notion of revolution, which is frankly like a paedophile owning children's underwear and claiming it as a trophy. It defies comprehension on every level, and yet we have acquiesced in that delusion. The movie is about delusions. So like one of the questions I would ask you is that how many of you believe the end is real, and how many believe the end is a delusion? How many believe the ending is real? That's fucking...
I like kind of did, yeah.
Because the hopeless romantics believe the ending is real, and the cynical fuckers, of which there are way too many of you in the audience. The idea is that it should be both. We engage in the construction of delusion day in and day out, because the pain of reality is not the pain that it causes, but the pain of the responsibility we have to engage in order to aspire towards something that is far more noble than us. That's a much more terrifying pain than the consequence of giving in. And that delusion is the nature of our culture. And it's why some fucking scumbag like Enda Kenny and Joan Burton can ride over us, because we don't fight back. Occasionally it takes an extraordinary woman like yourself to make us realize that we are the ones who are living in the fucking delusion. So thank you.
I really enjoyed that movie. Thanks. I have both like first-hand experience, and I've studied a lot of, like, you know, how can I say this? Let's just say it was brilliant. I wish he made it 10 years ago though, you know, when he came up with the idea. I don't think I would necessarily focus on the government. I think we need to get people talking about, I'm talking about like, the mental health facility in the country. Unfortunately, there are the right people doing the job, but there also isn't the right people doing it. But it's all down to money at the end of the day. And I think a lot of people, like yourself, took a chance, you know? And yeah, you didn't make any money, but if you had made a second one, it would be amazing, because I think people need to learn that we have to be weaned off medication, you know? We have to be told that there's hope and all that, you know? So I think you did, like that lady down there did say that there is hope, but people do have to talk. And yeah, you talk in a film, which is amazing, but I'm glad now that people like myself and people I know and mothers, you know, they should all watch this movie, but I don't think people should be getting angry, you know, because everything changes happen for a reason, but it does take time.
What's your name?
Amy.
Amy, thanks very much, Amy.
Okay.
Just a couple of things. When I mention the government, it's in relation to the lip service that is paid toward people with mental illness. And one of the things we have is we got the apparent series of policies put in place that are claims toward protecting people, when in actuality they're pulling every funding from every group and every individual across the country. And they're attacking the poor, the vulnerable, the weak, the ones with the absolute necessity of protection. They're attacking them. So that's why we talk about the government, and that's in terms of the film as a political metaphor. As a human story, weaning off drugs, there are magnificent people who work in the mental health industry, and I'll call it an industry deliberately. Magnificent, utterly magnificent people. Those people are often punished for their very magnificence, because their magnificence holds up a mirror to the mediocrity of the ones who are trying to control it. In terms of weaning off medication, the pharmaceutical industry does not give a singular fuck on any level about any patient in this country. All it cares about is having us on drugs from the cradle to the grave, and the profit margin that it gains from it. That's all its interest is. And the last thing, in relation to hope, the end of the film is about hope. Making a movie is the most optimistic thing you can do because it's an impossible task. Despite what I appear to be here, which is broken and foul-mouthed and so on and so forth, I'm so fucking hopeful it embarrasses me. I'm so hopeful it's naive beyond belief. I'm so hopeful that walking around Galway today, the electricity in the air for the possibility of change through democracy made me feel like I was a fucking child again.
So
one second, Lee,
yeah, we got one back here. Oh, sorry.
Hey Terry, just wondering, why Damien Dempsey's music in particular? What's the resonance with that?
Well, for me, there's, you know, in the pantheon of the greats in our culture, each generation seems to throw forth somebody who can be extraordinary. And I think Damien Dempsey is our Luke Kelly. I also think that he comes from a place of such raw courage that he knows he can cause people to want to puke into their own fucking mouth when they hear his music. And he knows that he can make people feel like life is filled with such possibility we can transcend our pain. And I've seen him in concert multiple times. And individually I know him as well. And I think that of all the artists in our culture right here, right now, he is the manifestation of everything that is broken and everything that is brilliant about Irish culture.
I'm 2 months off medication, you know, and that movie stirs up a lot of shit inside me, like, and but what I found, if we stop eating shite, smoking shite, drinking shite, and talking shite, we can change, you know. I'm changing, do you know what I mean? I'm getting smarter, you know, and I haven't been through as horrific as what he's been through, but it's more manipulative, like, you're sick, you're this, you're that, and you know, the first time I saw the movie 2 months ago, I broke down crying after it, so not many movies do that, like, and you know, I'm starting to feel emotions again, which is good, but I don't want to end up like that old man in the hospital, you know, so I take this serious, you know, I'm a fucking vegan now, I'm perfecting my fucking game, do you know what I mean, and so if we stop blaming others and blame ourselves, that's the start, you know, but there is others to blame, you know, and I just want to know, like, the psychiatric staff, do they actually feel like winners when they go home and, you know, what they're actually doing, you know what I mean? And but it's not much I can do, but by word of mouth, you know, and just change ourselves. It's ourselves that name, you know. And you know, so that's it. Thanks. Cheers.
What's your name?
Paul.
Paul.
Yeah.
Paul, I love what you said there, and the fucking courage to say it.
I'm only 2 months off medication and I'm realising the truth, and it's hard, like, but I'm well able for it, trust me, like, yeah.
I don't doubt it for a moment.
Yeah.
But the idea of that, you said that we shouldn't blame others, it's only ourselves to blame. I agree we shouldn't blame others to the point where that becomes an addiction, or where it becomes the negation of responsibility for who you are. But also, you've nothing to fucking blame yourself for. You're a complex, remarkable human being that in the context of a psychiatric profession does not satisfy their notion of how they need to contain you, therefore they will find a way of making sure that they contain you. That's not your fucking fault, that's theirs.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
Is it getting easier to make films? Given the last 20 years, is it getting easier to make films, and is it getting easier to make good films?
The idea of making a movie, we talked earlier about shooting a movie in your camera. Look at the fucking camera you have in front of you. In the history of cinema, which, you know, it's only 100 plus years old, but in the history of cinema there has never been a revolution like the revolution that has happened in the last 10 to 15 years. You can buy a camera for a couple of £100 that you can shoot a movie on. The scenes in Patrick's Day where he goes to the St. Patrick's Day festivals and he's on the Ferris wheel and all that kind of stuff, the point of view stuff where the mother is talking to him, that was shot on a camera that I got for $200. And I know this is projected on Blu-ray here, but on a massive projector across the world on huge screens, it's managed not just to hold its own, but people can't. Now, because aesthetically it's a different look, we accept it. But it's cinema, and it's capable of being projected. That's a camera for $200 fucking. So, in terms of making cinema, there's no excuse not to make cinema. I think the problem with cinema is that the people who, the next generation, are so busy imitating genre, so busy imitating American models, so busy imitating movies they've seen, that actually they've nothing to tell. They think that a pastiche or an homage or whatever the fuck you want to call it is a celebration of cinema, whereas cinema was always about the discovery of the moment where you realize you are not alone in the world. And the problem here is that cinema is no longer coming from the heart and the soul and the genitals of the filmmakers. It's coming from the imitation of trying to get a next job. We are making films as audition pieces to get plucked by Hollywood into the world of possibility, as opposed to making a film that we are so deeply afraid of people seeing because it will reveal how utterly individually alone we are, that we are afraid to communicate that. So the idea of cinema has never been more vital, more viable, and yet the movies we are making have never been more vacuous and without fucking reason for making. What another optimistic answer. Jesus, I'm a barrel of laughs.
Well, we might end the Q&A there, but before we do, oh sorry, Julie has a question.
I just want to say that I noticed a beautiful parallel how before the film you said that, you know, some people might love the film and some people might hate it. And when Kenny said that you considered the mother quite ruthless, I was very surprised. And I guess there's beauty in that we all saw it differently. So I just wanted to say that I thought it was beautiful the way there was empathy towards each character in the film, and that they were all frail in their own way. And so I guess my question is like, do you find enjoyment in getting everybody's take on how they see their film through their own filter, and in a way that's what the film is about, that what is reality, you know? We all kind of see things in a different way.
Well, the strange thing about the film is that, you know, even what you were saying earlier, Julia, the idea of the people who've seen the film more than once have had a profoundly different reaction each time. And that to me is quite exciting. I'm not claiming responsibility for it. It's their reaction. It's a projection. But again, we've, as I said, received hundreds and hundreds of letters from people. And these are people that I don't know, have never met, and would likely never meet. But the ones that I have met who would come up to you and go to a dark corner and talk about something, you suddenly realize that movies have not lost their power to transcend our notion of self, which is incredibly exciting. That despite all the cynicism, despite all the bullshit ordained by governments, despite all the immeasurable amount of material that we can engage with, it hasn't desensitized us to connecting on a heart level to a movie that becomes deeply personal to us and us alone. And if the film operates on that level for one person, and it's not a line, because it was the same thing with Charlie Casanova, because I used to watch movies. I used to watch 5 movies a night, because if you brought them back before a certain time, you could get them for next to nothing. Oh, yeah. And watching those movies in a bedsit, alone, and being terrified of being alone, and being filled with the love of the possibility of engagement, and then watching a movie that made you feel, my God, I'm not alone, was amazing. So there are people who won't like this movie, and will continue not to like it, and that's genuinely not a problem. But it seems to be that there are also people who connect with it on a level that is so profoundly exciting that thankfully it transcends the movie and becomes about something that is alchemical, something that is worthy of the reason why we go through all this bullshit to make something that transcends all of us.
Just before we finish up now, I want to say from our point of view, from Little Cinema, we are hugely honoured and grateful for you to come down here and to screen film with us and to be here yourself and to have this Q&A with us. We really appreciate it, and I think the film is amazing. I loved it. I thought it was brilliant, and I'll still be figuring out layers of it for the next few days, few weeks. But at the end of the FLA last year, we interviewed you, and you gave us this amazing speech about why you love Galway and that kind of stuff, and what's good up the FLA, and it was just inspirational. So I want you to take off your grumpy head and take off your angry head, put on your happy head, put on your inspirational head.
Have you met my mother?
And I want you to just fill this audience with so much
semen. Apparently it's legal now.
I want you to give everyone this sense of I don't know.
He's not building this up much, is he?
Inspire us. Give us an inspiring, uplifting speech about what's good about.
Why, Kenny?
No pressure. Go on. He can do it. He can do it.
You can do it.
Look, the reality is that sitting here, having you in a fucking room, watching a movie that was something that you dreamed of making and never thought it was possible to make in the first place. When you sit down in front of a blank page, you never ever presume for a second that it's going to get made. You don't have that birthright, you don't have that sense that it's ever going to be read by anybody, much less made. Then when it goes through the process of being made, you hope that the thing that made the seed that started that process will live beyond your ego, yourself, your fear, all those things. And when a film is made, the only thing that matters, the only thing that resonates with an audience is that seed that was there in the first place. And it's not born out of a desire for fame or sex or money or any of those fucking things. It's born out of a desire to connect on a soul level, without even knowing what a fucking soul is, with a stranger in a dark room. The fact that I'm sitting here with a bunch of strangers in a dark room discussing a movie, I can't think of anything more remarkable. So thank you.